Imagine if we could send dogs to go to war on our behalves. Now imagine if these dogs were so tiny, human beings could not even see them with their eyes. So we would have these soldiers, very very tiny, almost invisible, killing our enemies and they wouldn't even know it's happening. That is what biological warfare is all about. That's what we call biological weapons. The use of biological weapons can be traced back as far as the year 1347. That's over 600 years ago. The United States of America got attacked in this way in the year 2001 in an attack that lasted for several weeks and killed 5 people. 17 people were also infected. The attack was in the form of letters that were sent to various senators of the US and also some news outlets. These letters contained anthrax, the disease caused by a bacteria called Bacillus anthracis. So spores of the bacteria were put in the letters. Picture it this way: the person would open the letter and the spores would float out and they would be inhaled by the person and therefore they get infected. The investigation to find the person responsible for these attacks carried on for years before the culprit was found. In fact, the FBI called it one of the largest and most complex investigations in the history of law enforcement. At first, a man named Stephen Hatfield was the prime suspect. Hatfield is a bioweapons expert who studied around the world including Zimbabwe and South Africa. In 1999, the company Hatfield worked for wrote a report on the possibilities of using anthrax in an attack. This report included things like how much anthrax you would need to put in that envelope so that it is undetected and yet effective. So after the attacks happened, some people saw this report as being the blueprint for the attacks. Hatfield's home was repeatedly raided by the FBI. They tapped his cell phone and they followed him around for nearly 2 years. He was even fired from his job. Still, he denied any involvement with the attacks. 7 years later, in 2008, Hatfield was exonerated of the crimes. He sued and was paid $5.8 million for his troubles. There were other suspicions that this might have been the work of a rogue CIA agent. These never went very far. In April 2004, a different name came into the FBI's list of suspects, the name Bruce Edwards Ivins. Bruce worked for the US Army as a microbiologist and was actually involved with the investigation from the beginning. He was assisting with checking the anthrax samples and reporting on that. But what could have been his motive? The LA Times newspaper reported that Bruce was a co-inventor on 2 patents for a genetically modified anthrax vaccine. This could have led to a contract worth more than $800 million. Well, that's a lot of money. When Bruce found out that Hatfield was no longer the prime suspect, his behavior changed so drastically that he even lost some of his security clearance. In June 2008, Bruce was involuntarily admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Late in July 2008, investigators informed Bruce of his impending prosecution for his alleged involvement in the 2001 anthrax attacks. On the morning of July 27, 2008, Bruce was found in his home unconscious. He was taken to a hospital and died 2 days later of an overdose. His death was ruled a suicide. On the 6th of August, a US attorney made an official statement that Bruce was the sole culprit in the 2001 anthrax attacks. He stated the following points. While he was assisting with the investigation, Bruce has submitted false evidence to throw the investigators off his trail. Bruce was also unable to explain why he worked late hours in the lab during the time of the attacks. He tried to frame some of his co-workers. There was evidence that just before the attacks happened in September 2001, Bruce had immunized himself against anthrax. This suggests he was preparing himself. He had access to the type of anthrax that was used in this particular attack. He had used some of the language that was used in the letters on some of his email. Even after Bruce's death, his attorney still maintained that Bruce was innocent of all of these crimes. He said the government's case wasn't convincing. He stated the following points. Bruce passed a lie detector test in which he was questioned about possible involvement in the anthrax attacks. The anthrax used in these attacks was too sophisticated to be produced by a lone researcher without the proper training and assistance. Specialists working at the Lawrence Livermore National Lab were unable to duplicate the sophistication of this particular anthrax despite 56 attempts. How then could one man have managed to do so on his own? What do you think?